Hi, my name is Tom Nguyen. I am a managing partner at Key Partners. I've been a commercial real estate broker for about 22 years, a commercial real estate investment broker, investor myself, and also a developer.
Welcome to the Vietnamese. I'm your host, Kenneth Nguyen. Being part of a culture of nearly 100 million Vietnamese people in the world today comes with a lot of pain, proud history, and privilege. Join me as I highlight and explore the Vietnamese experience from all over. Thanks, Tom. Congratulations on the recent VNARP recognition awards to the highest producing Vietnamese real estate salesperson here in the US. This is a huge distinction. And it's important to recognize this. And I wanted to invite you on for years now because we've known each other since the mid 90s, actually.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to
Since
watch
college days, right? Yeah,
college days, yeah,
yeah,
definitely since
yeah.
college days. And to see you climb this way, I've tracked your progress throughout the years, and we have a lot of mutual friends. So this is a big to beat out all the Vietnamese brokers and agents in the United States. That's a huge deal, and we'll definitely get into that. There are thousands of brokers and agents in our community, in our Vietnamese community. What kind of things about you had allowed you to get this far?
Well, I think we have to differentiate between residential and commercial, because there's the majority of people in real estate are in residential real estate, and they're just totally different animals. I think the skill set in commercial is very broad. I'm an attorney by trade. I'm a licensed attorney. That definitely helps. Residential, it's very simple, right? You can buy a house, you can fix it up, and you can add value that way. But in commercial, there's so many myriad of tools that you can use to add value to a commercial property. So if you're able to identify certain opportunities and employ a lot of these different techniques to add value to commercial real estate, then you can become successful. And that's kind of the key to it.
What kind of added value things are we looking at? I mean, I don't want you to give away the secret sauce, but
No, 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 no.
what are the few things that you look for?
I think in commercial real estate is very unique. And I just want to go back on there's a lot of Vietnamese people or Asians in residential real estate. There's very little of us in commercial real estate.
Mm.
I mean, I could probably count them on one hand, especially Vietnamese. So I'm not sure what the reason for that is, but I think is one is lack of exposure. I think people just don't understand. You go to your local grocery store, you go to Albertsons or you go to Whole Foods, and you just don't know that those centers that you're going into are actually bought and sold like quite often.
Oh, really?
And and brokers like myself trade them for large investors and sellers. And that Whole Foods probably used to be occupied by a Kmart, or as a vacant Macy's or something like that. Some broker bought that property with a vacancy and brought Whole Foods in and increased the value by so much. So that's an example of a tool you could use. I think in commercial real estate, the concept of one person's trash is another person's treasure is really true in commercial real estate, because you can rezone the property. It can be an office building. Right now, the office market is getting trashed
Yeah.
because of so we're looking at office buildings for the land value. But if you can change that office building on land and convert it to residential, you know, um, just by the stroke of a pen, by city approval, getting entitlements, the property goes up by that much without putting any sticks in the ground
Mm.
yet. And once you build it, of course, it goes up more. But those are the type of tools that you can use if you know the cities, where the cities are leaning towards, what can get approved, or if you have a tenant in tow, like a Whole Foods or like a Chick-fil-A or something like that, then you can really add value to property. And it's not it's still inefficient. So that's where you can play in a market that's not efficient. Like the stock market is efficient. If you bought a stock and you know what it's trading at, you can sell it or buy it right then and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
In commercial real estate, things move slower. There's a lot of laws and there's a lot industry has transformed a lot in the last 5 years, even, right? So, it, like even like 5 years ago, industrial properties were like, okay, maybe like 8 years ago, industrial properties were like the worst properties there were. So they're like the lowest cost. They're in like the worst areas. They're just basically warehouses and stuff like that. So commercial real estate investors kind of, never thought about purchasing those warehouses in industrial space. They were only purchased for people who like had businesses, they weren't purchased for investments, right? But now the industrial market, industrial buildings are basically the best product out there because of Amazon. And there's two things, because of Amazon and because of COVID, right? So Amazon basically came along and started buying up all these warehouses because they need to basically distribute. If you're doing e-commerce, you don't have a storefront, you need to get your goods into a warehouse and ship them. So it's all these distribution warehouses that they need. And the more they want to get it quicker to you, the closer the warehouses have to be to your home. So they're not out in the San Bernardino anymore. They're right here because they want to get the last mile delivery. They want to deliver it to you in like 15 minutes eventually. So the storage has to be very close. So all the industrial properties just shot up.
Wow.
They're like 3x what they used to be. It's crazy. And then on the reverse side, the office market used to be the top of the industry. I mean, those buildings in San Francisco, those high-rise buildings in San Francisco where, Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff occupied had the highest rents in the country. Now they're like ghost towns. Okay. And COVID also caused a huge logistics problem with because retailers and e-commerce were so dependent on foreign goods from China and things like that. So COVID, when China shut down, we had a huge supply chain issue. So you notice that Target didn't have anything on their shelves and stuff like that. There's like people had a problem getting goods. So what's the result of that? You need more warehousing, more storage, because they want to store everything. Let's say they ship everything over here. They'll ship excess over here and store it here, so they don't rely on foreign shipments because of COVID. So now that even increases the warehousing issue. So now you own a warehouse, you're golden. I know one of my friends, for instance, they manufactured like paintball, right? Paintball supplies, and his business wasn't doing so well, but luckily he bought a warehouse to do his business in, like 6 years ago, and he bought it with an SBA loan at 10% down or something. I think he bought it for like 1.2 million back then, with 10% down. So you talk about like $120,000. His business wasn't doing so well, so he decided to sell. He shut down the business, tried to sell off his assets, and he sold that building for $8 million. So basically he put 120,000 down, and he turned it into like a $7.5 million gain. Right?
That is insane.
The numbers are just like,
it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, because of leverage too. The beauty of commercial real estate is you have leverage, because you can use a lender's money to buy something and the property goes up.
But that's like pure luck, though. I mean, that's like timing in the world with COVID and Amazon coming. You can't plan for something like that, right? In life.
Yep. There is pure luck in that. That's the case of pure luck, but the majority of commercial real estate is not luck. It's even. I'll just give you an example. One of my clients owns a piece of land on Bristol, and right across from Santa Ana College. And he called me one day and said, "Hey, I have this piece of land. It's been sitting there for a while. What should I do with it?" And I analyzed it, and I said, well, it's right across from the college. Bristol's a big street. I checked the zoning. I think you can put a drive-through restaurant there, and so I called up Chick-fil-A, I called up Raising Cane, and I presented them the deal. It was a little bit too small for Chick-fil-A, but Raising Cane took the deal. They're gonna do a ground lease where Raising Cane will basically build their building, and they're just going to lease the land, right? So so the landowner basically, because of Raising Cane, that property's gone up 3 times. He has he puts no money into construction because Raising Cane's going to build it, and they're going to just lease the land for the next 30 years. And he's going to have residual income for it. I mean, that's just a, and that's not luck. I mean, it is luck that he owns the property, but it's not it's not luck because we're adding value to the
But
property.
see, that shows that you need to bring in somebody like you to kind of have that expertise, that creativity, and the book of accounts, the book of contacts to make a call to a Chick-fil-A or a Raising Cane, right?
Yeah.
So that's some high level way of thinking of selling something because you're repurposing it, you're establishing a different use for it.
Yeah. And that's the big thing about commercial real estate. You can change uses or add tenants, or there's just so many different things. So, we just purchased the Los Cabos Sports Club, and we purchased it honestly to fight for too long in litigation. So we ended up giving it back to the seller, and we took a pretty significant loss because it's just eventually that property is probably going to get developed because the city's going to fight and they're probably going to win, whatnot. But uh, who can outlast, you know, uh,
Indian casino money.
those are deep pockets, and they can outlast you on any fight, and you're just draining cash the whole time. So I mean so the losses are there, but I think that I've learned from certain mistakes, and over the years we uh we definitely have seen all the red flags. I believe there is,
Now, with the
hopefully that doesn't repeat itself.
with the sellers of that property, you couldn't be like suing them because they didn't tell
Yeah,
you,
we did sue them. We did sue them.
because they
Yeah,
had to know, right?
yeah, but it's hard to prove if they do.
Hmm.
If they never developed it, they held it. They had it in their family for 60 years, and they've never developed it. So they're
That's a
just
red
saying, hey,
flag, no?
yeah, well, yeah, but it's kind of in a growth area, so there's a lot of vacant area, land in that area. So it's not like in the middle of Orange County or anything like that. But yeah, so that's the last deal I do at outskirts. The only deals I would do now are in dense infill areas where there has been development in the past and things like that. So that's the last time I touched something like that again. But it was very tempting because the basis was so low. So.
Got it. Got it. So
the U.S. war,
Yeah,
U.S.
same
and
thing. Your
same thing,
brother could be on that side, or
right?
it's the same thing. It's like a
And
civil war, right?
and you're always protecting your family secrets,
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
didn't want the Viet Cong to kind of know your family secrets. So everything was always very protected,
yeah.
and information didn't flow. So that was bled into our
Oh yeah,
generation or second generation. So that's what you're saying, right?
yeah, for sure, for sure. We're not trusting of each other. We don't. When it comes to money, it's like, oh, I'm going to give somebody else my
Okay.
money so that they can make more money. I'm not going to do that. But you know what? That's how money is made. That's how wealth is created. But yeah, yeah, it's I think hopefully we can break out of that very soon with more education. The American system is very safe. I mean, there's people can sue each other, and it's not like the Wild Wild West. It's a good place to do business. And that's why everyone comes here to do business. Is there's a lot of protection out there in the American system.
Now, are you working towards bringing groups of money together in our community? And if you are working on that, how's it going?
Yeah, you know, I've been a broker for 22 years, but in the last, you know, 6 years, I've been kind of specializing on land deals. So I've been selling land to home builders like Lennar, KB Homes, Toll Brothers, things like that. And those are publicly traded companies, and their business is to build homes. If they don't build homes, or they can't find land to build homes in, their stock goes down. So they're ravenous. These guys are hungry, and they're publicly traded, so they have capital markets, so they have a lot of capital. So I've been selling land to them, so I know exactly what they'll pay for it. And so when I find a property, like for instance, like Los Cabos, a 12-acre site, when I found that deal, I could have easily brought it to Lennar or something like that, but instead I teamed up with a company called Keystone. Is a company that's run by David Nguyen, Vietnamese home builder. He's probably the largest Vietnamese home builder there is. I think they've done like 30 projects, a lot in Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley, Buena Park. I actually bought one of his homes. He in Huntington Beach. He built these 17 5,000 square foot homes in the Huntington Beach. They're beautiful. So his quality is up to the level of the home builders. So instead of selling it to Lennar, I basically partnered up with Keystone, and we purchased it because he's a developer, and um, so that partnership has kind of turned into a new company called Key Partners, where we're looking for we have two business lines. One is kind of what I do, is to buy commercial real estate income property for cash flow, the existing income property like shopping centers and things like that, and add value to them either through repositioning or rezoning or adding mixed use components to it. Or the second business line is what kind of he does, is acquiring land or properties that we tear down and build homes on it. So when you buy land and tear down, there's two levels of kind of added value. The first level is when you entitle the property. Let's say you entitle the property for 50 homes. Before you even put sticks on the ground, that stroke of a pen of approval from the city brings the property value this much higher. And then you can either decide to build it yourself. Because in the past, I couldn't build it myself because I'm not a builder, right?
Yeah.
The whole process is mind numbing, and David does that. Before, I would just sell it to Lennar, who would who would build it, right? Um, and but now we can decide whether to build it or sell it to a home builder, because I have a partner that is both a developer, builder, and a general contractor. They're all in house. So that's our new kind of platform where and all this requires capital. When we find an opportunity, we need capital. So we're raising funds to do those two kind of lines of business. And our target areas are basically local dense infill areas that are very attractive to home builders. So.
And I can imagine if you go out to a community of wealthy Vietnamese people who have spent years as lawyers and doctors and engineers who are at the point where they can't afford to lose a few $1,000,000. Mm-hmm. How difficult is it to get people like that together to believe in you? Because I still live with that thought that Vietnamese people don't trust each other. And
yeah, it's true. But for instance, Los Cab, we purchased it for $27 million. We tied it up and we basically raised the funds in 2 weeks, because it's not necessarily because of us, it's because of the real estate. When they see the real estate is Fountain Valley, it's 12 acres of land, where do you get that? So because we had rights to purchase the property is a lot. The real estate sells itself. So I think that raising capital for a project is relatively easy if you have the right piece of property and the right opportunity. Raising funds to acquire property in the future is a little harder. So you have to have a lot of track record, and which I think we're with David and I, and he's built projects that you can touch and feel.
Yeah.
I think we're at that level, and with my track record, I think we're at that level where we can raise funds even prior to the project, because you have to be opportunistic, because when a deal comes, you have to kind of move fast. You can't raise funds every time, because the sellers don't wait for you, and yet you're competing against other investors and people who want to buy the same deal. So hopefully we can get there, but I think we have good momentum.
Now there's got to be other organizations that are in your life. VNARP is a new one, but are there other Vietnamese professional organizations like Vietnamese attorneys or things that you know about?
Yeah, I used to be part of VAPA, the Vietnamese Association, the Bar Association, Vietnamese Bar Association. That's a really strong group. I don't practice law anymore, so I haven't gone to those meetings. But they have judges and the Vietnamese legal community has definitely progressed. And there's my sister-in-law is a federal judge. And to get to that level as Vietnamese immigrants is phenomenal, especially in the legal world, which I think that you have to be very good at articulation and reading and writing, and it's one of those things where like Asians aren't supposed to be good at, but I think that we made really good headway in the legal community.
When did you your path started to diverge and go into real estate versus law? What made you decide to take the other path?
Yeah, so when I got my license, I started in real estate transactional law. So I represented kind of like I basically did contract review for commercial real estate. So that's how I got exposed to commercial real estate. So I noticed that in a commercial real estate transactions, there's attorneys on both sides representing the buyer and the seller, right? The attorney's role And then I noticed there was a broker in the middle of it. There's a broker on the buyer side and a broker on the seller side. So I noticed that we had really different types of roles, the lawyer and the broker, right? The role of the broker was the deal maker. They brought the parties together to strike a deal. This is the price. Let's agree to it. We get it into a letter of intent, and the attorneys take over and negotiate a purchase contract, right? But the role of the attorney is unusual because they get paid per hour. The brokers get paid on closing. They get paid nothing if the deal falls apart.
Yeah.
So the lawyer, I mean, I no offense to lawyers, I'm a lawyer myself, but in commercial transactions, the lawyer's role is to slow the deal down, is to find problems with the deal, right? To look at risks and things like that.
You got to milk the deal.
Yeah. And I'm not saying all lawyers do that, but I'm saying that's kind of like the way the system's built. And the brokers want the deal to close. So I was looking at that I want to be the deal maker. I don't want to be the deal breaker, right? So I've kind of always been a deal maker, even when I was like promoting nightclubs and things like that. I think that so I wanted to bring people together and make deals instead of slow them down. So that's kind of how I got into it. I decided, okay, I'm going to be a broker, So as a lawyer, you can just take the test. You don't have to do any courses and stuff like that. So I transitioned over pretty quickly.
But now when you're wearing a broker's hat, you're also thinking about the law and scrutinizing the deal, right? So does that slow you down more than a typical broker, or does it actually enhance the speed of which a deal is made because you understand the deal points?
I think it enhances because when I can talk to the attorneys that are involved and I know what they're doing, and I know if they're being too picky or not, or just trying to like be difficult. But I also know when it's legit risk, and that helps my clients because my clients know I have a legal hat on as well as a broker hat on. I can't really double dip, but they know I can look out for red flags on their behalf as a broker. So they know that I want to make the deal happen because it's opportunistic because I'm a broker, but I'm going to keep them out of danger as well. So it definitely helps clients who are larger and needs a certain level of the commercial real estate industry is very legal. There's a lot of legal stuff that are involved because when you buy a shopping center, there's literally 30 leases that you have to review, and there's environmental reports and reciprocal easement agreements and sharing parking and access. It's a lot of legal work.
How important nowadays, with the advent of AI, is going to law school to eventually do something like what you do? Is it a necessity? Can people reach your heights without the formal education, on the job training, working alongside somebody like you, picking up just with the 4-year degree, just kind of navigating?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
There's brokers in my industry that, for sure, that don't have basically or not they don't have any advanced education. Yeah. I mean, there's like things that you can get, like certifications like CCIM or SIOR, things like that. But that's more for education. But I think it's a very talent-based business.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a very talent-based business.
And what do you mean by that? It means that you got to be good at what you do, but what kind of talents are you talking about?
You have to be really good with numbers. And you have to be really good with I compare it to being like a stockbroker, but for real estate. Because commercial investments are basically, you have to look at cap rates. A cap rate is basically like a PE ratio for a stock, right? Or you have to be able to add value to a property. So can I raise the rents? What's prohibiting me from raising the rents? Can I change the zoning? That's basically like a stockbroker who picks Tesla and say, hey, how's Tesla going to grow? If I have if I know the trajectory of their growth and I understand it, I can make a good educated guess. So a good stockbroker is talent based, right? That's why some of them, even young, some of them that are really young are like in Wall Street killing it, and some never make it. It's a very talent based business. So you pick the right real estate, you know how to add value to it. It's like picking the right stock and adding value to it.
Unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's really fascinating to me, and I'm so glad that there are people like you in the Vietnamese community, that because then it gives me a reason to, because it's culture based. It's
Yeah, yeah.
I don't normally talk to business guys as much as the creative side, and I'm finding that this is a very creative endeavor. The talent that you talk about with understanding the cap, would you say cap market versus P&E,
Cap rate, yeah.
yeah, cap rate. These are all creative sort of parts of your brain that you have to kind of synthesize with all this information.
Just to be frank. But
I mean, what are we looking at? Like, is it like a much higher ratio, or is it just a few percentage points off annually?
no, it's much higher. It's much higher. But the thing is, you can't just build residential on certain pieces of land. For instance, like cities need retail, right? Because of this tax revenue, right? They don't really get much revenue from
Oh.
homes, so they're not going to let you rezone everything to residential. But nowadays with the housing shortage, California has relaxed laws where you can rezone commercial to residential. But when you do that, they're hurting themselves. They're shooting themselves in the foot a little bit. In the past, before this whole housing crisis, it was impossible to rezone commercial to residential. So you can only build, you can only do retail or on commercially zoned property. So, converting a mall into an open air is the best thing you can do. If you own a retail property, but the cost of it is pretty large, and you can only do it in certain areas, right? For instance, they're redoing the Westminster Mall right now. That's going to be a group that I know pretty well is going to convert that into about 1,200 units of homes, and they're going to keep some retail, but most of it is going to become residential. So the Westminster Mall is going to be A lot of it's going to be torn down pretty soon. Yeah, yeah, for residential.
And there's so many malls across the country. I was in Missouri in the summertime, and there was a mall. There is a huge mall. You know, I roll into it, and I take my
Yeah.
kids, and I'm like, I told my buddy, I was like, he's from Missouri. I was like,
Mhm.
this is like dead. There's like it's 50% occupancy. There's nobody here. And I turned to another lady who was in the little kids park inside the mall, and I said, "Hey, is this like typical traffic?" And she's like, "This is crowded." And I swear to God, man, there was like maybe 10, 15 people in this huge mall
Yeah,
with all these closed, and it was the most depressing thing. And I actually wanted to talk to you about that.
yeah, yeah,
That trend throughout the country is happening because of, you know, Amazon taking over the retail
yeah,
space.
yeah, yeah.
What do people do? What do societies do once big malls like that close down? What can we do to repurpose and create new energy from it?
I mean, that's kind of like the big question that every developer is asking. But from my point of view, it's going to turn into mixed use. You know, it's going to turn into, you know, the residential portion. If it's in a good if it's in a good area where home prices are high and there's a high demand for housing, like this area, for instance, Westminster Mall is going to kill it with 1,200 homes because those homes are going to sell. Um, so, but in other areas where it's kind of like the housing is not as strong, it's harder. It's harder to do. But if you can find them all, you know, in denser areas, the best way to do it is convert it into mixed use and convert some of it to entertainment. Pickleball is becoming pretty large. Like people are converting former like Macy's into pickleball arenas, right? So entertainment, sports, a lot of like yeah, uh, experience centric um um shopping centers where it's like before it was movies, but you know the movie industry is suffering quite a bit with Netflix and all that stuff.
Done. Yeah, I think
Yeah, but now it's a lot of like kids parks and water slides and you know people still need to take their kids on a
yeah,
daily basis
yeah.
somewhere, you know. So anything sports related, anything water parks or you know, pickleball or with a mixture of housing where you kind of like more like the urban where you can get out of your house and go walk over to you know, and a lot of it is going to be converted to eateries, right? You know, so food halls and breweries and things like that. If you go to Diamond Jamboree, my client that owns that has done really well. It's basically a gigantic food court. That's what Diamond Jamboree is, and
Mm,
it's packed all the time.
all the time.
Yeah.
Man,
And if you
crazy.
look at in Little Saigon, you know, the only things that really are attractive in Little Saigon are the restaurants,
Yeah.
right? So people go to Little Saigon to eat. You know, they may go for events for Tut and Photo to buy, you know, to more like for experience, but most of it is to eat. Like me and you are gonna go to Little Saigon
Yeah.
to eat. Yeah.
And speaking of football talk, which is such an iconic place on
Yeah.
the map, what would you do differently to that place? I mean, if we're just speaking out of sort of like riffing in terms of creativity, what would you do to that place?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I would model it. I mean, Frank Zhao, I know Frank Zhao, and he's done wonders with Philip to be the pioneer to create it. But in my opinion, I would kind of mirror what Diamond Jamboree has done and bring some high level of, you know, just up the game on high level restaurants. And that, you know, if you know, so the restaurants at Diamond Jamboree are national restaurants, that are from different areas of the world,
Mm,
and they just have higher quality, you know. So up the restaurants because people go to eat,
yeah.
you know. And you know, I think I would model it after Diamond Jamboree, you know.
Yeah.
The Diamond Jamboree has the highest rents in Irvine. is phenomenal what she's done over there.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool to see if Frank does move in that direction. I don't know
I
why.
mean, if you've seen like on the Brookhurst and Edinger Center where Brodart is,
Yeah,
I forget the key group, the
key concept.
key
Mhm.
concept. They've upped their game
Yeah,
on restaurants. So if you bring kind of those concepts into Fullertau and make it really high
upscale.
end and modern, it has to be modern. Then the young people will come because the young people love to eat. You know, they love the experience
Yeah.
and they love hanging out with their friends and then having drinks. So a mixture of bars and restaurants and entertainment
But you would have
is
to
kind of
revamp the whole place because, then you
super
have
expensive.
these
Yeah, super
kiosks
expensive.
that are just selling toys randomly,
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
hallway.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
tricky, that
yeah,
there's a charm to it, an old world charm to it, but there's
yeah.
also sort of, you can do it like Diamond Jubilee, but you can't have both.
Yeah, you can't. You have to do either one or the other. You can't
Yeah.
have like the little little stand up selling toys or
Yeah.
and have like a super high end restaurant next to
Can't
it.
do it.
Yep.
And I
Okay.
think that that's sort of like where I stand at the intersection of like the old school charm versus like the modern, like how do we up our brand as Vietnamese Americans?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Little Saigon is the capital of, the population outside of Vietnam. So we don't have anything that anchors like the Diamond Jubilee Plaza. We don't have that other than Phu Loc Ta, but there is a time and place and a time in the point of our history where it's got to go the other way.
Yep. 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 Yeah. And I've actually brokered a lot of Little Saigon's properties. Like and I've always encouraged the new buyers to revamp those centers. Hasn't happened yet, but hopefully soon.
Yeah. How often do you go
Because they're
back?
all really dated. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all very dated. How
Yeah.
often do you
Yeah.
go back to Vietnam?
I haven't been back in like 8 years, and I haven't gone much at all. But um, from what I hear, there's Vietnam is like a whole new level than it used to be,
Mhm.
and no, it's very interesting. You know, I think Vietnam is benefiting from the whole COVID thing and the anti-Chinese embargoes, and so a lot of business has gone to Vietnam, and they're flourishing. You know, so that's as much as I know about it. Yeah,
But the legal contracts are probably the thing that inhibits you working there the most, isn't it?
yeah. I haven't. You know, people people somehow assume that when I sell these shopping centers in Little Saigon that I sell them to Vietnamese because they think that only people in Vietnam have that kind of money. It's not true at all. I've never sold a property, a shopping center to a Vietnamese like from Vietnam.
Yeah.
They're all people don't realize that the Vietnamese here have a ton of money, you know, and I'm sure the people in Vietnam have a lot of money too. But basically all my trades have been local buyers. But I've yeah, it's yeah, I don't I've never I don't visit much, so I'm probably the not the person to ask about the Vietnamese market. Although there are investors from what I know are looking um in the US to kind of safeguard their
Yeah.
capital. But I haven't worked with them directly. So
Yeah, it's going to be a changing landscape. And
yeah,
I know it's a little bit taboo to even entertain these thoughts of like working with Vietnamese nationals that bring money over
yeah,
from their side of the world. But I think eventually, I hope that we all are able to benefit from each other's
yeah,
relationships.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all Vietnamese, right?
yeah, it's the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tom,
Yeah.
thank you so much for spending time today with me. It's
Ah,
been a long time that,
Yeah.
connected in this way. And I appreciate you having a willingness to be very open and sharing all this information with me.
Yeah, your podcast is great. I mean, it's a really good thing that you're doing. With these conversations you're having, just on the business and creative side is really cool. It's really cool, and I think it's helping the community quite a bit.
Thank you. And I know a lot of people that know you, and I've known you since the college days, and
Yeah,
tracking your progress. I've always wondered, and I thank God that I have this platform that I can go to you directly and really spend this time and have the future where there's more opportunity to sit and talk on another podcast with you about,
yeah,
there's a lot of things that we covered that I want to get more into details with you.
sure,
I
awesome.
really
Yeah,
appreciate
I would
it.
love to share it. People need to know.
Thanks, Tom. I
Hey,
really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to The Vietnamese with Kenneth Nguyen. Special thanks to Brittany Tran, to Jane Nguyen, Catherine Nguyen, Tina Pham, Sydney Jamie, and Christo Trin. Please find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Vietnamese Podcast.